Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Tuesday, September 5th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Youngstown State game is in 4 days. The game against Michigan in 81 days. Quarterbacks have kind of been the talk of the town around Columbus over the last few days. Talking mostly Devin Brown and Kyle McCord and the quarterbacks for the 2023 Ohio State team. But today we're going to be talking a little bit about the quarterbacks for the 2024 and maybe 2025 and maybe 2026 season, and then a couple other things as well. We're going to be doing that with our buddy Marc Givler of BuckeyeHuddle.com. He just spent the weekend down in Georgia watching some really top-level talent play. I counted 4 different 5-stars and 2 games that he saw, which is, that's not too bad. We talked to him last week, kind of previewing this trip. Now he's gotten to go see Edrick Houston and KJ Bolden and Raiola and Air Noland. So we're going to be talking about all those guys. Mark, let's start with the guy who you have been so high on for quite a while, Edrick Houston. You've seen him a bunch in camp settings and, preseason scrimmage kind of settings and spring game settings. What did he look like on the field in a real, honest-to-goodness live football game last weekend?
Yeah, North Cobb did their homework. They ran away from him at every opportunity, but he was still able to make several plays when they were able to be made. Had a really nice sack in the second half that kind of showed his explosiveness and power, just kind of drove a kid back into the backfield. And while he was getting blocked, kind of simultaneously reached and just gripped the quarterback. And they had a really athletic quarterback at North Cobb, and he kind of tried to slip away, and Eddrick kind of slid down and grabbed him by the legs or whatever and brought him down. It was just a really impressive display of power. And so he's the prototype strong side end. Is he going to be like Chase Young and get 15 or plus sacks? I don't know that he's that. I think he's more of a almost like you call him like a dual threat defensive end. I think he's going to be one of those guys who can rush the passer incredibly effectively, can be an 8 to 10 sack guy, but is also incredibly strong against the run. So he's really he's probably kind of more of a JT Tuimoloau type of defensive end, kind of what they've seen out of him, just the way he plays the game. So still super impressed with him. Again, I think he's in that discussion as the best player in the class nationally, best prospect in the class nationally. And it's kind of a matter of, what your definition for that is, whether it's, are you picking the player who's going to win the Heisman? Or are you picking the player who may be the best college player? Or are you trying to predict who the number 1 draft pick is going to be? That type of thing kind of depends on, kind of your flavor on that. But he's one of the very elite players in the country, and they ran away from him. They chipped him with a back. He was double teamed at times. They did a lot to try and disrupt him, and he just kept coming. A lot of these 17, 18-year-old kids, that happens to them in a game. They'll get frustrated and kind of check out, especially when they're up in the second half. He didn't do that. He just kept going. He just kept plugging away and eventually broke through with a sack. And like I said, made a couple other nice plays, blocked an extra point as well on special teams.
Yeah, and I guess this is one of these times when I kind of want a little more context on who they're playing. I know Buford is a pretty big division school down there, right? So was in North Cobb? I mean, Cobb County is a significant area around Atlanta. So is this, they're playing a big boy Georgia high school football team that has legitimate, maybe D1 or D2 type prospects on the offensive line?
Yeah, North Cobb as a team, I think 5 or 6 Division I prospects. So, not all those guys are like Georgia, Ohio State type of guys. There's some, Coastal Carolina type. I think one kid's either committed to or is considering Coastal Carolina. But they had some size up front. They had a lot of athleticism. They hung with Buford for quite a while, actually, and Buford was able to pull away in the second half. So, yeah, I mean, every team on Buford's schedule is competitive. So he's not doing this against, 5'10", 195-pound offensive linemen. So just a really impressive schedule they have. And again, Cobb County, Kennesaw area, we're talking about that's kind of Justin Fields. He's right down the road from where Justin Fields played in high school.
Okay, just feel like that's always good context for people to know. When we talk about Ohio football, when we talk about, they're playing St. Ed's or they're playing Moeller or they're playing, one of the Pickerington schools or something, or Glenville, everyone sort of knows, okay, there's a certain level of expectation, a certain level of play that comes along with some of those names. Always just good to have that context when we're talking about teams from another state who might not be St. John Bosco or St. Thomas Aquinas or someone like that. So, okay, so they're playing a real legit competition. All right, so how about now let's talk about KJ Bolden. He is someone who is, unlike Edrick Houston, not committed to Ohio State. He is committed to Florida State, which you saw him before Florida State did what Florida State did over the weekend. So I'm going to guess that probably did not do anything to make him want to flip away from Florida State. But what did you see out of KJ Bolden? And do you have any sense that there's any reason to think Ohio State still is maybe in this thing for him?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I'm not 1,000% convinced he signs with Florida State at this point. Obviously, what they did to LSU, especially in the second half, I don't think is going to hurt them, and the type of season they're capable of having this year, may be able to help them there. But this one has been all over the place over the last 6 months between Georgia, Ohio State, and then Florida State coming in late. So I wouldn't count that one in or out for anybody until the ink is dry. Now, is Ohio State in the best position to flip him? I think geography, if you're trying to flip a kid, I would generally go with the school that's trying to flip him from 30, 40 minutes away. Probably has the better chance to get him on campus a few times. I think it's going to be easier for Georgia to kind of work that one. But there's no question Ohio State's still trying. I don't think Eddrick is putting a ton of pressure on him. I kind of talked to Eddrick a little bit on and off camera about that, about just like who he's recruiting and stuff like that. And I don't think he's going too nuts on KJ at this point, but I think, obviously they're probably both trying a little bit subtly to recruit each other at this point. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I as a player, he didn't have a ton of opportunities as far as, kind of showing that sideline to sideline range. Pretty run-heavy offense they were facing, but really impressive in run support. Just in terms of not only being a sure tackler, but there were a few plays he made up toward the line of scrimmage where you didn't realize he was in the play, and then all of a sudden kind of a blur kind of came up from the secondary and made a play. So he's a very aggressive kid, very physical safety, not just a guy who can run. So I was impressed with him, again, much like Eddrick, where he wasn't always gifted these great opportunities to do something special, but when he had a chance to make a play, he made a play.
All right, and then the last guy we can talk about, I'm not going to bother asking if Ohio State's going to flip him, because Ohio State had him at one point and no longer has him, and that is Noland and Raiola, 2024 five-star quarterback, who was committed to Ohio State, now committed to Georgia. You have not, I think, gotten to see Noland and Raiola. Have you gotten to see him play in person before? And if not, what did that look like? We have seen him in camp settings before, and I know he had a solid Elite 11, but what does he look like in a game setting as compared to, a camp setting?
Yeah, this was my first time in a game setting. He was very efficient. He's obviously, look, we can sit here and talk about his arm strength. Everyone knows he's got a huge arm, but I thought he was efficient on Friday. Not a lot of, kind of crazy risk. I know sometimes some of these kids with these big arms, especially in high school, they kind of take a lot of chances, and I didn't feel he did that. Got pretty good protection. He's not what I would call super mobile, but he moves well enough within the pocket. Again, he's able to there are some times where he's able to get, off his back foot, and he's still able to deliver the ball with zip, which is obviously a huge advantage for guys who are able to still be able to do that. But yeah, I thought he was really solid. They didn't really get rolling until the second half, so it was kind of one of those deals where I think they settled in a little bit. But he was really good. Nothing. I can't sit here and really pick at anything that he did. I thought he played a really good game, pretty clean game.
And, I'll be asking you to sort of compare and contrast him a little bit with Air Noland next, but I was just looking up the Elite 11 rankings, and there's not like an official Elite 11 rankings after these guys go through the multi-days of that camp, but, at least one of the national networks had Noland and Raiola number 1 and Air Noland number 2 coming out of the Elite 11 this year. So, yeah, that's sort of the level you're talking about, and that's a camp setting, obviously, and it's a little different than a game, so definitely this is why you go watch them play in games, too. So, all right, so let's. There's a little Noland and Raiola scouting report. Let's talk a little bit about Air Noland. Ohio State fans maybe have gotten a chance to see him play in person or on TV earlier in the year. He had a big, dramatic comeback win the first week of the season. What did he look like over the weekend?
Mixed bag. I did not pick his best game, and it wasn't just him. The entire Langston Hughes team was a little off. They lost to Butler out of basically Charlotte, North Carolina. I believe it was 30-27, I think was the final. They started really slow. They got into a 14-0 and then a 17-3 hole. He threw a few interceptions. Were they his fault? You'd have to kind of know what the play call was. There were a couple times where he and the receiver were not on the same page, including they had a backbreaker there. They had Air actually had a really good, I would say, mid-second through mid-fourth quarter where he was kind of lights out for a while after kind of a slow start. And then on the final, he brought them back. They were down 16. He got them down to 3. And they got the ball back with a few minutes left, and it looked like, he's going to have a chance here to do a drive. The very first play, his receiver kept going. He thought the receiver was going to break the route off. He throws it. Only a defender there at that point. The receiver, he ran a vertical, and Air was clearly expecting a curl or something there, and he didn't break it off. So I don't know whose fault it was. I'm sure, Air will say it was his fault. The receiver would probably say it was his fault. So, I don't know if I'll get to the bottom of that at all, but so there was miscommunication there, and it happened in the first half too. There was like a miscommunication on like a screen pass, and that got intercepted as well. So then they had a fumble. Air completed a screen pass. Running back fumbles it at like their own 5-yard line. So that gave Butler a touchdown there, and so Langston Hughes just had a whole myriad of issues. They had some penalties. The defense didn't play well in the first half. And so it was very much I don't think, for a team that just won a state championship last year and has won a lot of big games the last few years, I can't imagine they're very happy with that performance. But Air had, like I said, from about mid-second to mid-fourth was lights out. So it was a bit of a roller coaster. Had some great throws middle of the game, threw a few touchdown passes, showed really good touch on the deep ball, was kind of, again, we've seen him be able to zip those, kind of 10-yard outs outside from the opposite hash, showed that again. So just a really a strange game, but you saw what he's capable of for sure, certainly that middle portion of that game.
All right, so now I'm going to make you compare and contrast these two guys. It's sort of a natural comparison. Two guys, the two quarterbacks who have been committed to Ohio State's 2024 recruiting class. Give me stronger arm, better touch, better, more clubs in the bag in terms of throws they can make, mobility. Kind of give me a compare and contrast on where each of those guys is maybe a little ahead of the other.
Yeah, I would give Raiola the arm strength edge. But that being said, I would say Air has a plus arm, so I think they both have strong arms. I think Raiola probably has, if not the strongest, one of the 2 or 3 strongest arms in the quarterback class nationally. So that's not really a knock on Air as much as it is. That's probably Raiola's biggest strength is his arm talent, is his ability to drive the football. Air is, neither one of these guys want to run necessarily. Air is a better runner, a more willing runner, a slightly better athlete. Raiola's maybe the bigger, stockier guy. He's kind of tough to bring down in the pocket. Air's got to fill out a little bit. So there's a little bit differences there physically. Touch on the deep ball, I would probably go Air. I think he does a great job of, again, putting, no pun intended here, of getting enough air under the ball and kind of dropping it in the bucket, whereas Raiola's zipped, maybe a little more of a line. Raiola, but for Raiola, that comes in handy when he's, throwing something 20, 30 yards down the seam. So he's got that advantage there. Air's, I mentioned it earlier, I think one of the things Air does best is gets the ball out to the perimeter with accuracy and timing and quickness. I think he does that very, very well. Decision-making, until Friday, I would have said probably a wash, if not Air. Raiola had the cleaner game on Friday. I think Air threw 4 interceptions last year in 15 games. So historically has not been a guy who throws interceptions. So I think we caught an outlier game on that. But they're look, I think they're both elite prospects. I don't really have a problem with where either of them are ranked at the moment by the services. I think they're both tremendous players.
Yeah, you're talking about a pair of 5-star guys who are both at the top of the Elite 11 class. You're kind of looking for little differences. So good. It's nice to have someone who has seen them kind of back-to-back nights, just to be able to kind of compare and contrast that. is there a former Ohio State quarterback that Air Noland's game maybe reminds you of? Is he, just in terms of the whole package, is he Justin Fields or a CJ Stroud or a Dwayne Haskins or a JT Barrett or a Kyle McCord or a Devin Brown? Is there someone who he reminds you of?
There's not a guy that I just immediately like, oh, he's that guy. But I think, and there's going to be some differences here, which is why I hate saying this, because it's not, the Venn diagram here's got some separation. The Venn diagram's not a circle, okay? Just a single circle here. There's some things people listening are going to be like, well, he's this or that, that's different. And I probably agree. But I think in terms of the way he plays the game, he is most like, of all the Ohio State quarterbacks we've seen maybe the last 20, 25 years, I think he's most like Troy Smith. He's a good athlete. He's not a 4-3. He's not Braxton Miller or Terrell Pryor, but he's a good athlete. He can spin it. He's got a strong arm. He wants to throw first, but is capable of running. He's tough. He's got some leadership quality to him that guys kind of gravitate toward. And it's kind of the way he leads a team. So I think if I had to go with someone that they've had, it would be closer to Troy. Now, we could spend 30 minutes talking about some differences and things like, Air is taller, probably not as stocky as Troy, certainly not the Troy we saw at Ohio State the last couple of years he was there. Troy maybe even a better, more gifted runner just because his background, where Air's kind of always been a quarterback. Troy was kind of all over the place. He's always been kind of an athlete / quarterback. So there's some differences there. But I think, again, if you got to peg me down to like who's he most similar to, that's who I would go with.
You started talking, and then I thought, he's a lefty. What lefty quarterbacks has Ohio State had? Oh, he's not going to say Steve Belisari, is he? No. Okay. Okay.
He's not Steve Belisari. No. There
you go. So yeah, Southern left-handed Ohio State quarterback recruits. Not a big group of players that we've seen over the years, but at least two there. So. All right, so I think Ohio State fans would probably take Troy Smith 2.0 or whatever you want to call him. We'll see him this time next year. This year, though, we're going to see Kyle McCord. We're going to see Devin Brown. We're going to see the Buckeyes back on the field against Youngstown State this Saturday. Should be a game where you see a little bit more of Devin Brown and probably a little bit more of an apples to apples comparison of those two guys. We'll be watching that pretty closely. I'm guessing that will be a little bit of a storyline this week. Tony Gerdman and I on Tuesday are releasing a Buckeye Weekly episode. We went back and rewatched the game afterwards because watching it live in person, you see a lot of stuff, but there's some stuff that you want to go back and rewatch things. So we had a bunch of notes. We have plenty of stuff to talk about with quarterbacks and defense and running backs and offensive line and all that good stuff. So you can look forward to that in the Buckeye Weekly podcast feed a little later on Tuesday. We'll be talking to Ryan Day and Jim Knowles starting at noon at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. You'll be streaming that live at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. I have lots of coverage, of course, for you at BuckeyeHuddle.com as well. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.